Total Screen proudly presents the Weekly Set Podcast with Tyson Gifford and William Rohrig. Episode 220, recorded August 31st, 2019. Hello everybody and welcome to the Weekly Set, the official podcast of the Total Screen. I am your host, my name is Tyson, and joining me today, as always, is my partner in crime here at the Total Screen, William Rohrig.
Hello.
So today we are going to be talking about Amazon's series, The Boys. This comes from Garth Ennis, the creator of Preacher. This is adapted by Seth Rogen and his producing partner... Evan. This is produced by Seth Rogen and his producing partner Evan Goldberg, and was showrun by Eric Kripke of Supernatural. So we're going to be talking about this series, which is a kind of dark, gritty Supernatural series, but I think more than that, the best way to describe this, because that doesn't really give the clear picture, is that it's a very darkly comic series.
It's satire. It's satirizing not only the superhero genre, but also the influence of corporations on modern day America. You know, the idea that corporations basically have all this power and control through the products that they manufacture.
It's satirizing a lot, like, because it's also making a critique on kind of mega religion, like mega churches and that kind of stuff. Like,
there's that. That's also an element that's in there. Yeah,
there's a lot of critiques just about, like, largely. I mean, you could just say it's kind of a critique of American culture in a lot of ways.
True. Yeah, absolutely.
But yeah, it's a really funny show, but it's also a very, very dark show, with a lot of horrible characters doing horrible things to everyday people, and getting away with it, and living above the board. Basically superheroes that are sponsored by giant corporations that just kind of do whatever they want because they feel they're above the law, and they are, pretty much.
Yeah, they are.
And then their bad behavior is covered up, and their bad behavior is extreme, because it's, it's like murder and rape and, stuff like that. And it's just covered up by corporations, and,
Well, one corporation. The one corporation that owns all the superheroes.
Yes, Voight. The company is
or Vought.
Is a company that basically controls everything that has to do with superheroes. You learn that kind of by the end, that's what it is, that they are literally creating superheroes. That's what you learn by the end of the series.
Yeah, by the end of the series, that's one of the big reveals, is that these heroes don't have origin stories like Marvel or DC. They didn't come from accidents. They came from a serum that was developed that gives humans powers. And basically they pump this shit into people as soon as they're born.
Yeah, newborn babies and in hospital cribs, being injected with this stuff. It takes hold and develops super abilities in them. What this really focuses on is a group of vigilantes that work for some form of a government agency. I think it's for Homeland Security, kind of.
It was, well, I don't know. I don't know. Like, in the comics, it was the CIA.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't even know if it's officially, because The Boys, it starts out as a CIA agent enlists Billy Butcher to take down Homelander, and then it evolves into The Boys. And then there's this backstory, because the founder of The Boys is no longer present or involved, and there's references to a mission that went completely to shit, like before the series started.
Mm-hmm.
And there's like a lot of references to that.
Yes, it went wrong, and this character that used to run The Boys, basically, had recruited Billy Butcher, like, her whole family died as a result of this. So she's not dead and gone, like, she just left, because after her whole family died, she just didn't care anymore.
Right, exactly.
And so, Billy Butcher, he's in it for his own reasons. He was recruited in a sense of revenge, but again, we're talking about this kind of in a weird backwards way, but I kind of actually like talking about shows like this. this doesn't start with Billy Butcher. It starts with Hugh Campbell, or Huey as he's called, who is just a guy working a regular job, kind of living his regular life, not doing too much.
He is the everyman.
Yeah,
right?
He's got a girlfriend, a really strong girlfriend that kind of keeps him, she's kind of like the alpha in their relationship that keeps them moving forward. And he's just kind of loves her, and you could tell that they've had this relationship for a really long time. And he basically, like, his whole life is kind of rotates around this woman, and he is kissing her on the side of a sidewalk. He's holding hands with her. She's just off the side of the curb, and bam, she just gets run through by a speedster named A-Train and just explodes into just gore. And he's left sitting there holding her hands, basically, and screaming and just holding her hands. That's all that remains of her. Like, everything else is just a big pool of blood.
And this is where Billy Butcher comes in, because Billy Butcher recruits Hugh to his cause. He takes advantage of the situation. Now, it's gotta be said that Billy Butcher is not recruiting Hugh because he wants to help him, or because he actually cares. He's recruiting Hugh because Hugh is going to be useful to him.
Yeah, he's not even recruiting him as like an agent. He's only recruiting him because Hugh is in a position to get him a certain amount of information. Just because Hugh can demand of Vought. Hugh can demand an audience that would give him a chance to get within a certain area and place a bug for Billy.
Basically, Billy wants him to place a bug in the Seven's headquarters, and his idea is that Hugh is going to demand Vought give him a meeting with A-Train, so that A-Train could apologize to him in person and make it right.
Yeah.
You know, like, that's the plan. That's the idea. And it's funny because, like, Hugh totally does not want to do any of this. He doesn't want to, at this point, he doesn't want to be involved.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, he's scared shitless of...
He's scared shitless.
He's depressed. He doesn't know what he wants to do. He's just in a funk.
Right.
And, he ends up getting kind of pressured into this by, Billy Butcher, who takes Hugh to like a secret underground club for superheroes to show them kind of the bad behavior that superheroes go for. And the thing that pushes Hugh over the edge is that he takes him into a, room where he can spy on a bugged booth in which A-Train is talking to somebody else. I can't remember who, if it's anybody important or not. And basically talking about the fact that, he had run through this woman by accident and laughing about it. Like, it's just and it's not so much just that A-Train killed her, because he knew that already. It's that he's laughing about it.
He's laughing it off. Like, it's not a big deal to him. It's just, that's a thing that happened, right?
And this just, you can see the rage boiling under Hugh's skin at that. And this is what gets him involved. He thinks he's getting kind of involved in the whole thing, in the whole process. Like, yes, let's take down superheroes that deserve to be taken down. He doesn't realize that Billy just wants him for this one thing. Like, he doesn't care about Hugh.
Billy
he doesn't care about
him
training him or getting him ready or having him serve in any larger capacity. It's just opportunistic.
He's just gonna have him plant the bug and then cast him aside. Like, after he gets done planting the bug and he comes out, Billy is like, Billy drops him off back at his place of work, and Billy's just like, yeah, cool, I'll call you sometime. And, he takes off, probably intending Hugh to never see him again,
So we should say that the headquarters at Vought, where he was, is for a specific superhero team called the Seven.
Yes.
And one of the members, we'll go into more detail about all the Seven, but one of the, this part.
I was just gonna say, they're basically, obviously, an analog to Justice League.
Yes, very much so. One of the Seven, is somebody who becomes invisible. His name Translucent, and he, is a pervert who likes to go around butt naked and spy in the bathrooms and stuff like that. He's doing that in the building, for the Seven that Hugh is in, and sees Hugh place this bug. And so he's like, what the fuck? And so he follows Hugh back to his work, after Billy Butcher drops him off and starts attacking Hugh. And it comes down to, like, there's a big fight between Hugh and Translucent, and then Billy ends up coming in, and then you're like, oh, okay, so Billy's gonna be able to do something here. And it's like, no, Translucent's ability might be to become invisible, but it's because of his skin. Like, these supers, they're not like, they're even less balanced than, like, the Justice League, as far as, like, they have, like, no weaknesses, basically.
Well, the whole thing with Translucent is his skin is, like, basically, like, diamond, and he becomes translucent because of the way the light reflects off of his skin. Mm-hmm. But that's not the totality of his power. That's, like, more of a side effect.
Yes.
Because,
he's just incredibly powerful, basically indestructible.
Yeah.
And so they're, like, in this big fight, and you're like, oh shit, like, what are they gonna do? There's nothing they could do. This is where you find out that Hugh's a little bit smarter than everybody else has given him credit for so far. And he realizes that, the diamond skin would work against him in conducting electricity.
Yes.
And so he ends up basically knocking Translucent out with this electric charge.
Yeah, he knocks him out. Like, at first, like, he thinks he's killed him, but, it's funny because they throw him in the trunk of Billy's car, and then, like Billy's like, well, fuck, you're in this now. There's no going back.
Yeah. They start implying how messed up it is if he has, like, a member of the Seven, and you think, like, oh, okay, well, we can stash him, we can get rid of him, and they start, like, you start to see the panic in everybody that Billy's involved in, because Billy also goes back and gathers some of the other boys to end up helping him with this, and they, upon realizing that he has Translucent, they're like, oh shit, you've just fucked us. Like, we're all gonna be killed now,
Yeah, we're all, like, Homelander's gonna show up and kill everybody.
Yeah, and that's what you come to realize, because what ends up happening eventually, not at first, but Homelander you realize why that's such a threat, because Homelander will just fly over, at fast speeds, the whole city using X-ray vision.
We have to clarify, Homelander is basically Superman.
Yeah, he's like Superman without the kryptonite allergy.
Yeah, that's what makes him so scary. Like, more scary than anybody else in the Seven, really.
Yeah, so he can just fly over a city back and forth using X-ray vision to see everything.
Yes.
And
that is exactly what happened. So, like, they're in this quandary now where they have Translucent. They can't let him go because he'll run back and tell Homelander all about everything, and
they can't keep him too long or his absence will be noticed.
And they can't keep him too long, but so they're stuck, and so Billy Butcher sets about, like, he's going to kill Translucent. Billy decides that's the only thing they can do.
But they can't figure out how.
Yeah, they can't figure out how. They don't know how to kill him. They try several different things and nothing works. And so most of their time is just them holding him captive while they figure out a way to kill him.
One of the boys that Billy visits, and this is where they have a place to store Translucent and try to figure out how to kill him, is a guy named Frenchie.
Oh, Frenchie, yeah.
And Frenchie's like a munitions expert. And
yeah,
so
he's a munitions expert.
He ends up figuring out you can stuff a bunch of fucking dynamite up Translucent's ass.
Yes, well, he eventually dawns on him that Translucent's skin is diamond, but his insides aren't.
Yeah.
So if you could just get a bomb inside of him, you could blow him up.
And so he's got this bomb in him. Meanwhile, Hugh is in this weird position because they're talking for sure about killing him now, and Hugh's starting to get cold feet.
Yeah, Hugh's starting to get cold feet. And then eventually, the Seven, Homelander catches wind that he's missing. Eventually, Homelander does start to look for him. In fact, Homelander finds out exactly where he is and gets the right spot. But thankfully, Billy and Frenchie, like, they've run misdirection because, they have it set up so, like, a building, like, a couple blocks away or somewhere away, they have it blown up, one of their hideouts.
Yeah, one of Frenchie's places in particular.
Yeah, one of Frenchie's places. They blow it up, and that gets Homelander to go and investigate that. And while that's happening, they've let Translucent go, and Huey is holding on to Detonator, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then I forgot, like, the Translucent says something as he's leaving that kind of, like, triggers Huey, and he pushes the button and he blows him up.
Yeah, it just explodes him into a pile of gore.
Yes.
Similar to what was left of his girlfriend, Robin, who was hit by a train. Just a big pile of gore.
Because Huey was just gonna let him go. And then he had to be an ass, and he was like, nope.
Yeah.
Yeah, and yeah, he explodes into a big pile of gore. Frenchie, they come in, and they're just like, holy shit. They can't believe that Huey actually did that.
Yeah, I mean, it's the idea of killing any super is like preposterous on one level. It's like, how could you even do it? Even finding out a way to do it, like you could tell they were still a little bit disbelieving that it would work, you know?
Right, exactly.
But on top of that, it's the audacity of doing it, you know? Of making an enemy of the Seven, of having the Seven actively, continually looking for them. And,
yeah.
And this puts them in that position. And then what ends up happening from that...
Billy sees another opportunity.
Yeah.
Because Billy decides he's not going to hide this from Homelander or the Seven. He's going to use it as an opportunity to send a message.
He puts the remains in a lead container, which Homelander cannot see through.
Not a lead container, zinc.
Zinc, okay, yeah. Zinc container that Homelander cannot see through. But he's not doing this to hide it permanently. He puts it in a place where he knows it'll be found by the Deep, who is like the parallel to, or the analog to Aquaman.
Yeah, the Aquaman.
And so he puts it in a place where he knows the Deep is going to find it, and leaves a note.
And he leaves a note in there. We're coming for you.
Yeah,
is what it says.
Because that's an important thing that needs to be understood about Billy Butcher, is that he's part of this team to take down, but he's not so concerned about the team. He just wants to fucking take out Homelander.
Yeah,
that's all he cares about.
That's all he cares about. He cares about taking out Homelander, and you find out that you find out as the series goes along that Billy Butcher he'll let the rest of the team die as if it gets in the way of him getting his revenge on Homelander.
Yeah, that's all he cares about.
He doesn't care. Yeah.
And some members of the team, the boys were in a fractured state because of that, because they're all kind of aware of that.
Right.
But Huey doesn't realize he's gotten caught up in that now.
Yeah, he doesn't realize. Like, I think Huey, like, realizes there's something off about Billy, but he doesn't realize how deep it goes.
Yeah, how problematic it is. Like, the people on his team aren't necessarily in a safe position with their leader.
Right.
Let's talk about Starlight, because that's a big complication to the story, and particularly Huey's character.
Starlight is kind of our into the Seven, right? And that side of the story, because through Starlight we get to see the Seven through the perspective of somebody who is completely naive and innocent coming into this world as a new member of this world. It's similar, it's parallel to Huey, joining the boys, where Huey is this naive, innocent person entering this world of, just violence and insanity, and the same thing's happening to Starlight. She's basically the same as Huey.
Yeah. What's interesting is that there's a big parallel in the story to, like, kind of a critique of Hollywood, in a sense, that's using kind of the superheroes as an example of, like, celebrities, and Starlight kind of fits in that role of, like, the cliche girl off the bus from Iowa, fresh to Hollywood with stars in her eyes kind of thing, That's kind of her character. She's somebody that she's had superpowers since, she was a baby. She was injected with the same serum.
But she doesn't know that. That's the key.
Yeah, nobody knows that. Yeah, they just think that they're, like, chosen by God or something.
Yeah, they've told them, these are gifts that you were just born with miraculously.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like, I think the only person who, like, really knows the truth about it is Homelander, aside from, like, the people running the company.
Yeah. So Starlight's like this, like, she's a naive girl. She grew up with superpowers. She had a kind of a mom that's akin to, like, the, what do you call those, beauty pageant mothers,
I just showbiz mom.
Yeah. She's got, like, a very showbiz mom. mom, kind of that like has kind of
Joan
put everything
Cusack.
into turning her daughter into a star. You know, it's similar to Trisha's mom in Jessica Jones.
Yes.
It's everything's about turning into a star, except at the initial point of the story, Starlight doesn't have a fractured relationship with her mom.
It's funny. Starlight does have they have a good relationship at the beginning. It's funny too because like they talk about like some of Starlight's background. Like she was a member of like this little superhero group in like her hometown of Iowa, like this Christian superhero group.
Yeah. She was very involved in like faith groups and stuff, and like she would go to she would tour around and go to like Christian conventions and stuff, and like as an example of you know, good moral ethics and stuff. And
yes,
you know, if you do good morals, you'll be rewarded, like I was, or that kind of thing. She's kind of like living in that kind of a lifestyle, and she thinks it's okay because even though she's lying a little bit or putting on airs a little bit, she feels genuinely that she's doing good, that she's going to be a force of good in this world, and that she's going to be a superhero and save lives and inspire people.
Yeah, unlike the rest of the seven, or pretty much anybody else you run into who's a super, she's very genuine about wanting to be a superhero and do the whole superhero thing.
Yeah.
You know, she wants to fight crime and save people and make the world a better place.
Yes.
Like I said, she's super naive. She believes that the Seven is all about that.
Yeah, so she thinks she's getting into this group and it's gonna be great, and she auditioned for and she got in, and it's very much like a Hollywood talent agency kind of thing. She gets her tour from the first day from the Deep, who had mentioned before, he's the Aquaman, parallel. And so he's kind of giving her the tour of the office, and she's all wide-eyed, and she confesses to him that, you know, like, he's like, oh, you probably like Homelander the most, and she's like, no, actually, you were my favorite. I had a poster of you on my wall, and, you know, then she turns around and he's got his pants down.
He's got his pants down and his dick is out, and, you know, like he starts rubbing one out in front of her.
Yeah.
And she's just like mortified at that point. And she tells him so much, and he's basically just like, look, I'm gonna do this, and you're gonna watch me, or, you know, you're out of the team.
Yeah.
You know, I'm gonna tell Homelander, you know, what crazy bitch you are, and they're gonna take my side, and they're gonna kick you off the team.
Yeah, he's telling her he's like the number 2 of the 7. Under Homelander, he has Homelander's ear, which we learn later is, like Aquaman, is bullshit.
Yeah, exactly. We learn later it's bullshit. Like, the rest of the 7 do not give 2 shits about him.
Before Jason Momoa took on the role of Aquaman, there was a perception among fans and pretty much everybody else that Aquaman was the most useless of the Justice League. Now, you can argue against that or for that, whatever, but the perception was there. And the same thing applies, it's directly to the Deep. Like, it's a direct parody of that in a sense, of like the way he's treated by the team. But he's putting on airs as being this really important figure. In reality, he's much like the kind of jokes that people would say about Aquaman. Like, they joke about him being useless and stuff.
Right.
Aquaman is useless memes that are all over the internet and stuff, you know? Like, that's his life, you know? He's got kind of this sad, pathetic life in that sense.
So Starlight's introduction to the Seven is to get sexually assaulted by the Deep.
Yes. And so she has misgivings about that. She very quickly also learns that there's like a lot of pressure on her to kind of change her image, to look sexier,
She tries to go to Queen Maeve for comfort and advice.
Queen Maeve is kind of the Wonder Woman parallel. Yeah,
she's the Wonder Woman. And we get the sense that Queen Maeve has already had to endure this shit herself, and at this point she has no sympathy. She's disillusioned. She's disillusioned. She's jaded. She has no sympathy for Starlight, and Starlight quickly finds that she is not going to find any comfort there.
Yes. And so in the state where she herself is starting to feel disillusioned in the Seven, Starlight kind of goes to a park, and she's just kind of sitting there, feeling kind of down. Camera pans over, who's sitting right next to her? Hugh,
feeling disillusioned about the whole being in the boys thing.
Yes.
Yeah, you know, like just coming off the shock of having killed somebody for the first time in his life.
Hugh noticing that Starlight, not as Starlight, but as Annie January, as her alter ego, with him not knowing that it's Starlight. That's important to know.
Right, because she's not wearing her costume or anything, sitting on the bench.
Yeah,
and
it's not like a trap where he knows who she is. He has no idea.
He has no idea.
She's just a pretty, innocent-looking girl sitting on the bench with him who seems to be down and out, and he gives her, some advice. Basically, to kind of, he inspires her and makes her feel like, okay, this is something I can do. I can move forward and do the right thing. And he gets her kind of in that way. And so this begins kind of their relationship. Like, it's a start. They don't like exchange numbers or anything. It's just a passing encounter.
No, it's just a passing,
But they eventually run into each other again.
Yeah.
And they end up, at this point, he does recognize her. She's in her whole Starlight getup, and he recognizes her as her alter ego, even though she's in her Starlight getup. And that's the point where it's like, okay, now he knows who she is, but he's still kind of conversing with her. It's not like he's plotting against her or anything, but that becomes a big plot line.
It becomes a thing because Billy Butcher finds out, and Billy Butcher decides that he can use this to his advantage, and basically he encourages Billy encourages Hugh to go out with Starlight and get y'all involved with her to get information from her, and so that he could use against the Seven.
Mm-hmm.
Of
course, Huey does not want to do this. He's kind of, you could say he's acting naive, or you could say that Billy is overly vindictive. Where Billy's perspective is like, she's a super, all supers are garbage.
Yeah, all supers are bad.
And his perspective is like, no, she's different. There's a chance that she could end up helping us, not by, being informant, but by making positive change in this. Like, it's kind of a naive perspective, but it's not as naive as necessarily as Billy Butcher sees it as being. It kind of falls somewhere in between.
You can argue he was naive, but you also argue that Billy is overly pessimistic. He's like the opposite side of the coin.
Yeah, and the truth is somewhere in between.
Yeah.
So this kind of starts their relationship, which is a huge cornerstone of the series, is their relationship and basically, Huey knowing that who Starlight is and knowing who she is in this relationship and occasionally using her under pressure from Billy, and her not being aware at all and just being kind of occasionally weirded out by some of his requests that seem like he's using her.
Right.
Like, for instance, to get in touch with and have a conversation with a Jesus freak superhero who constantly preaches about, Christian values and stuff and goes to clubs and he's elastic and he goes and has gay sex using his elastic abilities.
Yeah.
And then goes and preaches against gays and stuff at, Christian festivals and stuff.
At Christian festivals and stuff, yeah. Ezekiel.
Who leads the Capes for Christ campaign. He's like the TV evangelist of superheroes, basically.
Basically, Billy Butcher wants to get Hugh to use his relationship with Starlight to get a private audience with Ezekiel and blackmail him.
To blackmail him into giving him information that they need on Homelander and on, I think it's mostly actually on the serum that we had talked about before that kind of creates the superheroes. That they don't know about that yet. They only know it as like a drug that enhances superheroes at that point.
What is it called? Yeah, they think it's they think it's like steroids, like because they find out that A-Train has been jacking up on that stuff. And A-Train, it turns out, is, A-Train has been using it as a performance enhancer, and he's become addicted to the stuff.
Yes. He and his secret girlfriend, who's a super turned, like, movie star, that's like kind of a washed up, has been.
She's a washed up has-been super,
And the two of them, they have this secret relationship because he can't have this public relationship with her because of, Vought's, like, control of everything that has to do with that. And, and they just kind of get high on this stuff and have sex and have this secret relationship. And, they end up finding out certain details about this, and they're trying to use as much kind of leverage to figure things out, how to use this against Homelander, basically, and against A-Train. They don't yet know that the serum is what can turn people into superheroes in the first place.
Right, they don't know that. They find that out later, but they don't realize that at first. They just think it's superhero steroids.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason they're so interested in this is because Billy Butcher is trying to get the CIA CIA to come down on the Seven, on superheroes.
Because the Seven are pushing to be military contractors.
Yeah, Vought is pushing to have superheroes in the military. The government is fighting back against this idea, like, they said, there's no way the Senate is going to approve that, so the main woman at Vought, Madeline Stillwell, she's basically manipulating things, using blackmail and stuff to get certain key senators to vote to get them into the military.
A senator who's clearly like a Republican and very anti-gay, she gets to have, tricks him into having gay sex with a super who can morph himself into a female form, and then unmorph so they can get video evidence of him having sex with a man, and uses that to blackmail him. There's another one that has information about their serum and stuff and threatens to use it against them if they try to coerce him, and Homelander kills him, so straight up murders him and his son.
Yes.
When they're flying Homelander, their jet back.
Yeah. He just uses his laser vision to cut the jet in half.
And so this is when you get the first kind of real point that Homelander is like a horrifying monster and not just the Boy Scout of the group, Yeah,
the whole thing, Homelander, it's funny because, he's dressed up, as like Captain America, basically. And he pretends to be like this patriotic, like super, like he's squeaky clean, like,
He doesn't visit these underground super clubs,
Right. When Huey asks, Billy Butcher about Homelander, because Billy Butcher, talks about like all the sin and stuff. When Hugh asks Billy about Homelander, Billy just says he's squeaky clean. There's nothing on him.
Mm-hmm.
So
this is kind of what's going on with Vought. What we end up learning as we learn about how the serum affects babies and turns them into supers and stuff. What we eventually end up finding out is that they're turning terrorists into supers so that they can use that as a point of power to negotiate their presence in the military. Because what is the military going to do against a superpowered terrorist? They can't do anything. So this is like a force position that I think is kind of masterfully disguised in the series as being like a goal of Vought's. And then you find out by the end of the series that no, that was Homelander working on his own.
Yeah, that was Homelander working on his own.
Well, not necessarily on his own, with A-Train, I guess you could say.
Well, it was Homelander's idea to create super villains.
Yes.
Right. Which is funny.
Yeah, so they're doing that, and that's a big plot point. That brings us to...
Well, it's a big plot point because, like, Billy gets a sample of serum. He finally gets, like his contact at the CIA to finally start to act, and as soon as they start talking about putting plans together, she finds out about this super terrorist, and then she's like, that cancels everything.
Yeah,
right there
even if she doesn't feel comfortable, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, it doesn't matter now, because if they're superhero terrorists, then they need Vought's superheroes to fight them.
Yeah, there's like no way around it. So, but it's also relevant because when Billy gets this sample of this serum, he gets it at the same time as they end up finding a feral woman in a cage.
Yes.
Who's being held there, and this feral Asian woman in this cage.
One of their test subjects.
Yes. Who gets out in the confusion of their raid and just ends up, like, massacring all the people that were holding her.
Well, she doesn't just get out. Frenchie deliberately lets her out.
Yeah.
Because Frenchie finds her, and immediately and almost immediately he develops an attachment to her.
Mm-hmm.
And he lets her free.
And she goes, like, and immediately, like, murders all of her captors using, like,
Yeah.
I'd say super speed, but it's not like A-Train. It's not like speed stuff.
No, it's not. No, I would say she's super agile. It's super agility.
Like, Captain America kind of power set.
Yeah, Captain.
Like super soldier style, And
well, it's like Captain America mixed with Wolverine, right? Because
that's what she's the real parallel to, is Wolverine, because she has a healing ability.
She has a healing ability.
Plus, even like Wolverine. The feral aspect of her is kind of reminiscent of certain states that Wolverine has been in.
Yes, yeah, exactly.
So this woman gets free. They eventually end up kind of getting her kind of on their side. It's kind of a complex process where
again, it's not them, it's Frenchie. Frenchie insists on it, to the objections of Billy Butcher, because Billy Butcher really doesn't want her around.
As well as the other member of the team that we haven't mentioned.
The other member we haven't mentioned, which is problematic.
Is Marvin.
We should probably introduce him.
He's Marvin. He's another member. He's a member of the boys that left the group, because he has, a wife and a kid, and he wants to live that life, and he knows Billy's a mess.
He left the group because of the shit that happened in the last mission, where the former leader of the boys, her family was killed. That mission broke the entire group apart. This is Billy.
But Frenchie stayed as an underground figure, whereas Marvin went this family route life.
Yeah. Again, Marvin was out of it, and Billy Butcher comes crawling back, and Marvin is not happy to see him. He doesn't want anything to do with anything he's talking about,
Mm-hmm.
Eventually, Billy manages to sweet talk him into coming along.
With a big Spice Girls reference.
Yeah. Oh, no, that's later. Basically Marvin asks, is Frenchie involved? And Billy lies and says, no, he's not involved. It's all good.
Yeah, so Frenchie and Marvin have a bad history with each other.
Marvin blames Frenchie for why everything went to shit.
That Frenchie didn't stick to the plan, and that caused things to fall apart.
And that caused things to fall apart, yeah. So that's Marvin's beef with Frenchie. Marvin believes that the mission fell apart because of Frenchie.
Mm-hmm.
And again, we don't have a lot of information about this. What we do know is that while they were doing something, they caused this super who's not around anymore. Apparently, the super named Lamplighter, obvious reference to Green Lantern.
Mm.
He killed. He ends up murdering the family of the founder of the boys.
Yes.
Because of their actions.
Mm-hmm.
And we don't really know any more than that because, again, all this backstory isn't fully explained. It's just we get bits and pieces of it throughout the season as it's brought up.
So let's go back to this feral girl who is listed with two different names, the female, and later we learn her actual name is Kimiko.
Yes.
But Frenchie in the lead to kind of trying to turn her to their side and to be compassionate towards her ends up kind of winning her over to the point that she even saves his life when he's being attacked by another member of the Seven, whose name is Black Noir.
Yes,
he's kind of the Batman parallel.
Yeah, Black Noir is Batman, and apparently he's badass because she saves him. We get this awesome fight with Kimiko and Black Noir. This is really the only thing Black Noir does the entire season. The rest of the season, he
plays piano.
Yeah, he plays he kicks a guy off the piano and starts playing.
Yeah.
But the entire season he's just there. He doesn't talk, so he has no lines. He's just mute.
Yeah.
So he's really mysterious.
He's always behind a mask. You never see his face.
Yes. You never see his face. This is the first time you see him in action, and to be fair, he really fucks Kimiko up.
Yeah, she's fighting very feral and he's fighting very organized. And they're both they're both organized. Super strength, and stuff. So they're both even kind of on that ground. But Black Noir is
we don't know. We don't know what Black Noir's powers or abilities are actually. Other than you can guess he's Batman. We don't know if he has super strength per se.
The fact that he could keep up with her at all says something.
Yeah. But he manages to knock her out. Functionally to kill her. He would have killed her if it wasn't for her healing factor.
Yeah, Frenchie kind of runs away while they're fighting on her encouragement, and and Black Noir kind of makes quick work of her, but Frenchie's long gone, so he's lost track of him. So Black Noir just kind of takes off. Frenchie goes back to where she is to kind of check on her, and he's kind of on the edge of tears, freaking out because she's dead, and then she just heals and wakes up.
Yes.
And this kind of like cements their friendship, I guess, at this point. And she gets, like, joins in with the group then. But she still doesn't really communicate. She's still kind of problematic. She's still prone to, like, sudden burst of violence and stuff.
Yes. And Billy still doesn't like her.
Yeah. Because she's a super. He hates all supers.
And he hates all supers, yeah.
So what should we talk about next?
Let's talk about the one of the best scenes is the plane hijacking with Queen Maeve and Homelander.
So this is a good example of just kind of the callousness of Homelander, but also the and the carelessness of Homelander, I should say, and a different side of Queen Maeve, where you see like why she's kind of disillusioned and beaten down.
We find out Homelander is a little bit incompetent, you know. But yeah, this is Queen Maeve because Madeline Stillwell sends Homelander and Queen Maeve to stop this hijacking. She thinks, you know, like if they do this, if they save this plane, you know, it'll be good press and it will help their campaign to get into the military by showing how that they can take out terrorists and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
You know. So basically, Madeline Stillwell sees this as a great PR opportunity.
We should say Madeline Stillwell, because I don't think we've introduced her, is the vice president of Voight International, and she's kind of the handler for the Seven, and specifically the handler for Homelander. It seems to be like the only person that Homelander cares about, or at least seems to be.
Homelander has like this weird obsession with her,
like almost Oedipal obsession with this one. He kind of like takes on like this weird motherly role. That's also kind of sexual with him.
That's like, also sexual, yeah.
And like he gets really jealous because she ends up having a kid, and he gets really jealous like a older child dealing with like a new sibling or something.
Right. Yeah, he gets jealous. He hates this kid because this kid is taking her attention away from him. We see like there's this great scene where like there's this hallway in their tower where like there's portraits of all the Seven, and Starlight comes upon him and he's staring intently at his portrait, you know.
Yeah.
And she basically says hi to him, and he basically like just ignores her or brushes her off, you know, with a curt, you know, oh yeah. And he goes back to staring at himself, but we find out that that hallway is directly behind that is Madeline, and he's actually using his X-ray vision to stare at her.
Yeah, he just watches her and kind of fixates on her. So this all leads to, we mentioned Homelander being kind of careless. So he's on this hijacked plane with Maeve, and they go through the plane. They're beating up the terrorists and reassuring the passengers that they're all safe. They get to the pilot room, the cockpit, and he just kind of carelessly uses his laser vision and causes, you know, destroys the plane basically. Yeah. So now the plane's like plummeting, and everyone's like, "Oh, what are you gonna do? You're gonna save us?" And Homelander says, you know, and says to Queen Maeve, who wants him to save everyone, basically that, you know, like, I can't. There isn't enough time to save everybody. And if we save some of them, but not all of them, then, you know, this will blow back on us. So for the sake of PR, we need to just let them all die.
Yeah, he's basically like, there's nothing we can do to save them, you know, like, and even if we can't save everybody and we can't save some of the people, so they gotta die and we gotta go.
There can't be any survivors. And so they either have to save them all or none of them, according to Homelander. And you can't save them all, so they all need to die. Maeve is freaking out. She wants to take this little girl, at the very least, playing with this toy, and she wants to take this girl and, like, save her. She wants to save everybody, but in particular, she's fixated on this girl, and she can't let this girl die. But it doesn't matter, you know, there's nothing she can do. They get out of the plane, it crashes, everybody dies. Yeah. And Homelander Homelander twists around, turns it into a PR win. Yeah, like if we had known about this earlier, we could have saved everybody. Yeah. If we had the heads up, we could have saved. If only we were government contracted, we could have had the heads up and saved everybody. Yeah. So he ends up turning this appeal, this kind of like this, and along with another speech he does at that big Christian thing that we had mentioned earlier, that big Christian conference where he pretends to be like big Christian. Yeah, where Ezekiel is doing his whole spiel, where we end up having Huey cornering Ezekiel and getting that information on him. The same convention where all this happens.
There's a really tense scene in that convention too, because where as part of the whole meet and greet, Homelander is there, and everybody in this private meet and greet session is getting baptized by Homelander.
Yeah, this is something that Huey has to go through in order to get his private audience with Ezekiel.
Yes. And when it gets to Huey, it's like Homelander holds him under the water for an uncomfortably long amount of time.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
It's a very tense moment between them where it's like the idea is, do they recognize each other? Do they know? Do they, like...
Yeah.
There's a little suspicion on Homelander's side, because Homelander knows who he is as, like, a boyfriend to Starlight. So he's interested in him for that aspect alone. But he doesn't know the full truth of who Huey is.
Right.
Huey, of course, knows Homelander is this monster that, needs to be taken out or whatever, but can't, like, show his fear and show his, like, he has to show reverence like everybody else shows him.
Right, exactly.
But, yeah, so at this Christian convention where this all happens, Homelander does like this big speech. This is where you see those two speeches along with the destruction of that one other plane where he killed the senator or whatever. I don't know if it was a senator or lobbyist or somebody that he killed because they claimed to have evidence against them. You find out like all of this was kind of going against the wishes of Sitwell. Or Stillwell, I should say.
Yeah.
It was going against kind of her wishes and her position and her orders kind of for the team. And this is when you start to establish that there's a little bit of a contentious aspect to the relationship between Stillwell and Homelander. Like,
well, Stillwell is trying to keep Homelander
in check,
in check, like to have him follow like company guidelines, and Homelander is increasingly
going rogue.
Increasingly going rogue, just doing his own thing.
Yeah.
And
you start to see how problematic this is, and this coincides with his like jealousy of the child, which he's blatantly open about with her. Like whenever she mentions her kid, or I have to pick up my kid, I have to do this for my kid. He doesn't hide his annoyance at it, And it's becoming this point of contention, and like as we'd mentioned before, that there's like lots of things like the whole plot to make the super terrorist that we thought originally was like Vought, and then you found out later was just Homelander. That's all part of this too, is this idea that Homelander is like going rogue and kind of making these decisions for them. And so they painted Vought as Vought as the like horrible, the biggest villain of all of this. And then quickly you start to realize that like, no, the people in Vought, especially Stillwell herself, are terrified of Homelander themselves. And they're just trying to make the best of the situation they're in. They're trying to handle him, they're trying to control him in a way because they're terrified. They're not, like, they act like they're in control and treat him like they're in control, but they know they're not in control, and at any moment he could turn on them and kill them all.
Yeah, they have no control over him. In reality, he has no witness. There's no kryptonite in this universe.
Yeah, there's nothing that can stop him. And then you start to learn, let's talk a little bit about Homelander's backstory.
Yes.
Because Homelander's recording this video thing where he's like in this ranch house, very much like, the Smallville farm,
Smallville. He talks about an upbringing very similar to, Clark Kent's upbringing, where he had these loving parents and he was like the all-American, he was an all-star on the junior league baseball team and all this shit.
Where he had to, hide his powers and only use his pure athletic ability, because it would be unfair and like all this stuff.
And we find out that that's a totally manufactured backstory written by Vought for him.
This comes out because there's a blanket on the set. It's like, oh, this is his blankie from when he was a child. And he flips out when he sees it.
The only part of that which is true.
Yes.
By the way.
He flips out when he sees it. He gets really angry, kind of terrifying the crew a little bit. And it turns out one guy on the crew had placed placed that there. It got it from, storage and put it there in order to, like give more depth to the story that they're trying to tell. He does not appreciate it.
And we find out his background's a little different because presumably, unlike, say, Starlight or A-Train or maybe like everybody else where they're pumped full of this serum as an infant and then presumably given back to their parents to raise them as normal people. Homelander was raised completely in a laboratory being monitored 24/7. He didn't have like a normal human upbringing.
No mother's love, no father's care, no affection. I mean, like there's some of the people that were observing him tried to kind of like a little bit maybe too late, tried to kind of
and you could say like the rest of the seven are bad, but there's a distinction between Homelander and the rest of the seven where people like A-Train are just like assholes, like A-Train is not like evil or malicious, he's just got like a big ego because he's a celebrity with superpowers.
Yeah.
He
still kind of has
asshole.
like a human experience to his life.
Whereas, yeah, he has the same thing with the Deep, whereas, yeah.
The Deep actually becomes quite sympathetic through the series. Just basically because you see how much of a sad sack fuck up he is.
Yeah, there's a lot of hilarious stuff with the Deep, even though like
he keeps
it's
trying to do a few things that are right, and every time he tries to do the right thing, it blows up horribly.
Oh god, it's hilarious because he kidnaps a dolphin from like the Sea World, because
he can talk to animals like Aquaman,
Yeah, he could talk to fish like Aquaman. So it's hilarious too because like it's hilarious too because he kidnaps this dolphin and the dolphin wants him to fuck it. That's basically the conversation they're having. and basically like he's like, yeah, okay, all right, it'll happen. But then like, the authorities like stop him and he has to stop the truck suddenly and the dolphin goes flying out the windshield.
And immediately hit by a truck.
And immediately hit by a truck. And there's another similar scene where like he's at the supermarket and he's buying and he decides to rescue this lobster and he tries to buy it to rescue it, and as soon as he buys it, like the attendant there like kills it.
Yeah. Sticks a knife in its head. Yeah. Just
sticks a knife in its head.
And he tries to stop him. He's like, no, and it's like too late.
It's like too late. And then there's like this really weird scene where it's like it's karma, I suppose.
It's a really uncomfortable scene.
It's really uncomfortable scene where like he gets raped. He gets raped himself. The thing is he has these gills in his abdomen, and this woman like basically like forces herself upon him and jams her fingers in his gills, and the whole time he's going like that actually like really hurts. That's actually like really painful, and she doesn't stop because like she's getting off on like just jamming her fingers into his gills.
Yeah. So it's like, this is where you get like a little bit, but then it's funny because in the midst of all of this happening, of all this kind of redemption stuff for him, then you see him filming this commercial about cleaning up the beach, and like a girl walks by and he's like right up to his old tricks of like, like checking out her ass and trying to kind of like, use the situation to his advantage sexually against her and stuff. And it's like, he's sympathetic to some extent, but he hasn't changed. He hasn't apologized for anything that he's done. He's apologized publicly, like for record, because they forced him to. But he's not like, he doesn't mean it at all or anything. And so it's not that he's made amends or anything. It's just that you see him suffer in return for everything that he's done. You learn that like we had mentioned before, he doesn't come from a position of power as the number two. He's the joke of the seven, Yeah,
he's the joke of seven. Yeah, he's not the number two. If anybody's number two, it's Queen Maeve.
Yeah. Queen Maeve or Black Noir.
Or Black Noir, yeah.
Because there's a great part where, like, Homelander is so upset with all of the seven that are still around. With, like, the Deep's gone. He's off in this other...
Well, the Deep's... Well, it's the scene where Homelander finally finds out who Huey is.
Yeah.
And basically blames Starlight for him.
Yeah.
And he gathers everybody in to basically berate everybody for this happening, and to
A-Train fucking up, for Queen Maeve being soft, for
and then he's like except you Black Noir, you're great.
And it's so funny because he's saying it in such this intimidating way, and then when he turns to the Black Noir, he's just like, "Except you're great," like in a very genuine, happy, jovial way, you know, like. Black Noir's just sitting there the whole time, and he's just like, "You're great, man. Your work is just awesome," you know.
Yeah, exactly.
Which is really funny. That's kind of like Black Noir's role for the most part in the series. He's just kind of there, and he's always there. He makes most people uncomfortable, and he's just like always in his mask, and that works towards comedic effect. We'd mentioned him being kind of kicking a guy off of a piano. They're like at a party, and this guy's playing on a piano, and he like walks up and just sits down on the bench and just stares at the guy till he leaves.
Right. Yeah, so Homelander's backstory is, he was raised in a lab. And he is basically seeking answers. Homelander is seeking answers to something that happened a while back.
Which ties into Billy's story. Well,
Homelander's seeking answers about his past. He goes to confront the professor who assumedly it came up with the serum and created Homelander. And he was the guy, the scientist who monitored him basically his whole life. You know, he confronts him about it, you know, and he drops a bomb on Homelander. Well, we need to go back now because we need to talk about Billy's side and why Billy is Billy, why he has this vendetta with Homelander in the first place.
Yeah.
You know?
That's what I was saying. Like, this ties into Billy's story. So.
Yes, so
Billy had a wife. And he really loved her, and he wasn't involved in the boys at all or anything at this time. He was clean cut. He was put together. He really cared about her. But they ended up running into Homelander at like a party, at an event, and Homelander got really kind of flirtatious with her, and he was kind of a little bit uncomfortable with it. But she was going to be working, his wife was working with Vought, working kind of like making the promotional films for the heroes and stuff like that. And they decided to bring her in on a project for Vought to promote these superheroes, and you find out that his Billy's wife just kind of disappeared, and he was kind of confused about what happened, and then that's when his recruiter came to him, the person that kind of started the boys that we had mentioned a few times, and showed him a video of her and Homelander like going into a room together, and then her coming out kind of disheveled afterwards.
Right. And they know, like, disheveled, she runs off, and Billy says, that's the last he ever seen of her. She didn't go home after that. She just disappears.
The implication being that she was raped and that she either killed herself or was killed by Vought and or Homelander in order to protect that secret.
Right. But that is, and we got to note that this information, this video, this footage was presented to Billy by the founder of the boys.
Yes.
As sort of her pitch for recruitment, you know, like.
Yeah, that Homelander raped and led to the death or disappearance of your wife.
Yeah. And so you gotta go after him. You know, that was basically it.
And so that explains Billy's, like, singular drive towards killing supers, basically.
Yes, exactly. He blames Homelander for the rape and death of his wife.
So the big secret, and this comes out because Homelander recognizes Billy. He sees him a few times, thinks he looks familiar, and puts it together around the same time that he discovers the identity of Huey.
Well, Homelander is trying to get answers about his past, so because the whole thing with the fake past and the blanket triggers Homelander to go back and do some digging about his past.
But when he actually goes to that guy, it's after he learns about Billy.
Yes.
Because that reminds him of that woman, Billy's wife, that he slept with. And then that kind of mystery of why Billy's so fucking angry, so scornfully against him, reminds him of that, and he starts asking questions about that woman. And he asks, like, Stillwell about it, and she's just being very evasive.
Yeah, Stillwell's being very evasive, so That's why he goes to the source. And Homelander gets a bomb dropped on him, and that apparently he managed to impregnate her, but he tells her that
we should say first that they make it a big deal that like these superheroes cannot have children.
Yes,
and
so they make it a big deal.
And so this whole life, like Homelander has been raised to think that he can never have children, and so the idea that he impregnated somebody is like this huge bombshell.
Well, he kind of continues this narrative, right? Because he says he managed to impregnate her, but the baby came out stillborn and killed her in the process of birthing. So it was not a successful. It was not a successful birth.
Well, I think what they said was that it ripped her apart from the inside and then drowned like in her blood.
Okay.
So it wasn't stillborn, but it couldn't survive because it was freaked out by the trauma of birth, and having power and ability just ripped the mother apart from the inside as it was trying to get out and ended up drowning in her blood.
Right. That's what Homelander gets.
But he ends up, this goes back and forth between this message and then seeing Stillwell several times after that, at which certain details are brought back up again when he lets on that he knows information on this, and it becomes clear that, like, the stories aren't lining up.
Right.
Because I think Stillwell's the one that ends up telling him the child was stillborn. And he's like, wait a minute, how could my child have been stillborn if he drowned in his mother's blood after ripping his way out? Like, that doesn't make sense. That's an inaccuracy in the story. Something's wrong.
Homelander pieces together that they're lying to him.
Yeah. And so there's like this tension brewing kind of between them, and we've talked about kind of the trying to control Homelander and the fear going on with trying to do that, and Homelander going increasingly rogue. All of this kind of culminates at the end of the series with, Billy finally deciding to take out Homelander.
Well, yes. Well, at this point, because of the whole, superpowered terrorist thing, the boys are now fugitives from the CIA as well as the Seven.
Yeah.
At this point, everybody is fully on their case.
Everybody was captured except Huey.
Frenchie, except for Huey and Billy, who happened to not be there when they were captured.
Mm-hmm.
So once they get back, so when they're going back, they drive, Huey and Billy drive past the hotel because Billy says we've been compromised.
Mm-hmm.
They keep going. And so Huey's like, well, if they captured the rest of our team, we gotta save them. We gotta go help them. And Billy's like, no, there's no time for that. I gotta get to Madeline. I gotta get to Homelander. And, this is my only shot at Homelander. I gotta take it. And Huey's just insistent. And he's like, no, you can't leave the guys behind, like, you have a loyalty to your team. And
Billy's basically like, fuck the team.
Yeah, he's basically fuck the team. He's basically like, they knew the dangers when they signed up.
Yeah. So they go their separate ways. As we mentioned, Billy is going after Homelander. He knows he can't kill Homelander, so he's decided the one thing he can do is to kill the person that Homelander cares about, which is Stillwell. He can murder her and make Homelander feel the pain of it.
Right.
So he goes on that route. Meanwhile, Huey goes and walks right into the trap. Knowing like that he has kind of an idea on how to get them out of there. We should also note that, by this point, like we don't have to go into full details, but by this point, Huey's relationship with Starlight has been, has come to the surface. She knows, she was confronted by Homelander and as we'd mentioned, and fully knows who Huey is. And they've had like a big falling out and they've gone their separate ways, and Billy actually shot her, in order to get Huey to escape. So she feels betrayed and is not happy with him.
Right.
And he goes kind of thinking like, okay, well, everything's gone now. I'm completely on my own. I am going to go and save them. He walks right into the trap, knowing it's into the trap.
Well, he walks into the trap, but he puts a piece of metal in his retainer. So like, a lockpick.
Yeah, because he knows like Frenchie can use that to get them. Yeah. He's an expert lockpick.
He walks into the trap to get him thrown into, the holding where they're holding Frenchie and Marvin. And, and there's this funny scene where they're just trying to get this out of his mouth because it's stuck, he gets stuck, but they manage to get out, you know. So they get out and they're trying to get one over on these CIA guys, and it just looks like they're going to be overwhelmed when Starlight shows up and saves Huey and the rest of the boys.
Yeah.
And then what happens is that after she shows up, A-Train shows up, you know.
And he's like, I knew you were a traitor.
Yeah, I knew you were a traitor. And, but then he starts, but then he has a heart attack from his addiction to Compound V.
Yeah, the serum that we had mentioned.
The serum that he's been jacking. He's been overexerting himself.
Yeah, and it's put a strain on his heart, and now he's dying. Like, we should mention he's had kind of a rough go, too, because that girlfriend, that actress that he, had, because she ended up getting blackmailed by the boys and being used against him. Basically, at a certain point, Homelander basically ordered A-Train to, murder her.
Yeah.
And so he had to kill his own girl, and he's been freaked out about that ever since, and he's been hitting the V even harder, and just kind of completely in like a shell. So he's blaming all of this now on Huey and Starlight and every misfortune that's befell him, even though it's all basically his own fault. And so they start fighting. He has a heart attack. Huey shows compassion for the man who murdered his girlfriend by accident, I should say, I guess. And is trying to resuscitate him.
Yes.
And this is kind of where we part ways with the rest of the boys, I guess. The other boys, Huey tells them to leave. Starlight sticks by Huey, and Huey's trying to resuscitate A-Train. That's the last we see of them.
That's where we leave them. The rest of it is just the showdown with Billy and Homelander, with Madeline as a hostage.
Billy straps himself up with dynamite and has a dead man's trigger and visits Stillwell, and Stillwell has her baby, and she's like, I have a baby upstairs, don't do this, and he gets Homelander's attention, and Homelander comes. And he comes downstairs with the baby.
Yeah, he comes downstairs with the baby.
And Stillwell's begging him to take the baby and get the baby out of there.
Yeah.
And he's just ignoring her and puts the baby down, and Billy explains that because he can't hurt him, he's gonna kill the person he cares about. Homelander's just kind of ignoring him basically, and starts talking to Stillwell about being lied to and about finding out about his, that they haven't been telling the truth. And finally he gets her to confess what's really important. Not like a thing that she did or anything, but the fact that she's terrified of him.
Yes.
What she actually thinks about him, and she's terrified of him. And she expresses this, and he says kind of like good, basically, or oh, thank you for telling me, and then uses his laser eyes to just melt out her face.
Yeah, he kills her. And then
Billy's just watching Billy. What the fuck,
Yeah, this is not the outcome Billy was expecting. And so Homelander turns to Billy and is basically well, there goes your leverage. And Billy's just like, oh well, and just pulls the trigger anyway, blows the place up.
Including the baby.
Including the baby.
Yeah.
Billy's basic thing is his plans failed, so now he's just gonna kill himself.
Yeah, it's over. But we get a flash of light, we hear a sound, find out it's a sprinkler, and Billy's laying on the grass of a lawn. Is he in heaven? Or is he? No. No, quite the opposite. Not hell either. Homelander has dropped him off on the lawn across the countryside and is saved his life. Homelander saved Billy's life. Presumably not the baby's, we should add. He doesn't care about the baby, always had an object of scorn for the baby, and there's no evidence to suggest he saved the baby as well.
No.
He saved Billy.
He saved Billy because...
And he talks about how he has this big surprise for Billy. He's gonna blow his mind. And we see a woman and a child walk out, kind of startled to see Homelander there, and Billy there. And that woman is Billy's wife. And the child is Homelander's child.
Yes. Huge surprise for Billy. Because Homelander found out about this obviously before the end of the season. Before he kills Madeline, Homelander has already figured everything out and knows exactly what's going on. Mm-hmm. And so basically after Billy explained his entire beef with Homelander to Homelander just knows that this is going to twist the knife for Billy.
Mm-hmm. killing is so easy.
Yeah, killing is so easy. This is worse.
Yeah. So now Billy's confronted with his wife who, like, there's debate going on. I don't know what side you fall on it. Do you think she was raped, or do you think she had an affair and then when she found out she was pregnant, disappeared? Because Billy just assumed she was raped.
Here's what I think. Here's what I think. I think she did. I think she did have an affair. I don't think it was rape.
I fall into the same camp, and I say that not just because take Homelander off the hook.
Well, let me finish.
Okay.
So she had the tryst with Homelander, and then she disappeared not because she wanted to, but because Vought found out and they made her disappear.
Yeah.
And they basically made her raise this child in seclusion.
Yeah. I think that my main reasoning, I think that it was an affair and not rape, because that same thing could work if she was raped, but I think the main thing is that having it not be rape it's not to let Homelander off the hook. He's done so many horrible things way beyond that already that that doesn't even matter anymore with the amount he's already fully irredeemable.
Yeah, he's already fully irredeemable.
So you don't need that, but having it not be rape is another twist of the knife for Billy.
Right, yeah, exactly, yeah.
And that's why I think it was an affair. It's like, it makes more sense for the story.
If it was consensual, then yeah, that would hit Billy even harder.
Yeah, because not only did she have an affair, but she had an affair and then deserted him, and like left him not knowing what happened. And basically would reveal that everything Billy believed, his whole motivation was a lie. Yeah. And now he's gone like hating and wanting to kill every super he could possibly get his hands on, and now here's his wife sitting in front of him with a super child.
Yeah.
And that it's on so many levels.
And not just the super child, but the child of like the one he hates the most.
Yeah. And so in every way, like everything, it's just like the worst possible situation for Billy in like every possible way.
Yeah.
But basically, so that's the end of the series, or the first season, I should say, is that moment and Homelander introducing himself to his child as who he is, as his father. And you see the child's eyes kind of glowing in the same way that Homelander's do.
Yeah, so.
That's it.
Crazy ending.
That's The Boys. I mean, there's lots of other stuff, but we just don't have time to talk about everything that happened. There's like a great cameo by Haley Joel Osment, who has like a kind of cool role in it that is involved in the action.
Just watch it.
Yeah.
Just watch it.
Well, if you've listened to this whole thing by now, I hope you've already watched it.
Hopefully.
Otherwise, we've just spoiled the entire thing for you, which you should know better, because we said we were going to be talking about it.
Yeah, there's an excellent cameo by Haley Joel Osment. Like, there's so many great moments.
Yeah. We'd mentioned like the Deep having these kind of great moments throughout. There's a lot more to A-Train's story than like we kind of let off in our conversation. We just don't have time to talk about every detail of it. Yeah, I mean there's so much more, so many more reasons to kind of pay attention to it. But it's just a great series, and I can't wait for season 2. This was a massive hit for Amazon.
It was.
It's like their biggest series like so far. I mean, it's not going to stay that way with the kind of stuff they have in the pipelines right now, like Lord of the Rings and stuff. Like, Boys won't stay their number one, but it did exceptionally well compared to their other stuff. They're already almost done filming the second season.
So I cannot wait.
The second season's going to be much sooner than people anticipated. Season 2 was like filming and in development before season 1 came out. And now they're saying that, depending on, I guess, on how well season 2 does, it's looking like season 2 already had a step up in budget, but not a huge step up in budget. And now they're saying like season 3, if it happens, which is most likely going to happen, is going to have a pretty significant budget, like a pretty significant step up from what it already has in season 2.
Right.
So it looks like this one's going to stick around for at least a couple seasons. And yeah, it looks really good for season 2, and it's a great show.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm excited about it, and excited about getting more of it. So, that's it for this week's discussion. Next week, I believe we're talking about, Mindhunter Season 1, right?
Yes.
So we're going to talk about Mindhunter Season 1. I know Season 2 is already out, but Will has not watched Mindhunter yet. So instead of just having him watch the whole thing and discuss the whole thing, or just discuss Season 2, we were kind of working out our schedule, and we saw some weeks that had gaps, and we said, you know what, we could do it this way. We could have a discussion about Season 1, a late discussion about Season 1, then we could do something else for another week, and then come back after that and talk about Season 2. And we could get through the entirety of Mindhunter. It's a great show. show. Have you started yet?
Yeah. Yeah.
You just without saying anything, let's not start a discussion yet, but are you enjoying it?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. I'm looking forward to discussing with you. I need to catch up because it's been a long time since I've seen the series. I need to go back and watch watch a few choice episodes and stuff to get myself a little caught up. But yeah, so that's what we're going to be talking about next week. But until then, here's what's coming up in the week ahead. We're recording this on Saturday, August 31st, but on Friday, August 30th, The Dark Crystal: Age of Resistance hit Netflix. The A-List returned to Netflix. Back to School came to Netflix. Carol and Tuesday to Netflix. The Good Bandit to Netflix. Of course, it's Friday. Tons of Netflix shows always. But also Carnival Row hit Amazon Prime. Now, I haven't checked this out yet. I plan to do it soon. This only came out a day ago. But Carnival Row is one of the ones we had brought up in our what could be the next Game of Thrones. It's a big fantasy series with a decent sized budget and, a fairly expensive cast. So we'll have to see if that ends up being good. It looks like a show that could potentially be really bad or really good. Like it could be really moody and really interesting and really hit and really establish a good world building, or it could just be like romantic garbage.
Right.
We'll have to kind of see where it falls in that line. But, that's something I'm going to be checking out. So I'll check in on that for sure. On Tuesday, September 3rd, Greenleaf returns to OWN and Mayans MC returns to FX. On Wednesday, September 4th, Wu-Tang: An American Saga comes to Netflix. On Friday, September 6th, Elite returns to Netflix. The Spy, which is a miniseries starring Sacha Baron Cohen, comes to Netflix. And Titans returns to DC Universe. On Monday, September 9th, The Deuce comes back to HBO. That's the one about kind of the early days of the porn industry in New York. Then on Tuesday, September 10th, Mr. Mercedes returns to DirecTV and AT&T. It's like they're kind of, you can only really watch it if you have one of those. Then on Thursday, September 12th, This Close comes to Sundance. Mr. In Between returns to FX. And lastly, on Friday, September 13th, Room 104 returns to HBO. That's an anthology horror series. And Unbelievable debuts on Netflix. And Undone comes to Amazon Prime. That's that new animated series starring Rosa Salazar. That's like a big, it's like from the creators of BoJack Horseman, but it's supposed to be like this rotoscoping style, similar to like a Scanner Darkly.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of people are looking into that. I've never really been into that art style, so that's kind of a downside for me, but like the plot looks interesting. So we'll have to see what happens with that. So until next week, you can reach me on Twitter. I'm at Tyson Gifford. You can reach Will. He is at Voxel Hero. You can check out our Facebook page and our YouTube channel, as well as our site, thetotalscreen.com. You can subscribe to this podcast through any major podcast client like iTunes or Pocket Cast, and the entire backlog of our podcast is available on our YouTube channel. So thank you everybody for listening. Good night.
Good night.
If you would like to reach out to us and make a comment, send an email to contact@thetotalscreen.com. Stay tuned to The Total Screen for the very best